Welcome to We Have a Goddess podcast with spiritual detective Dr. Joanna Kujawa, where we discuss the archetypes of We Have a Goddess, Mary Magdalene, sexuality and spirituality, and really anything that catches my attention and is somehow related to spirituality. And today I have a great pleasure to welcome again Dr. Celene Lillie. We had an interview with her recently on the rape of Eve, her wonderful work, and today we are going to discuss Find the Perfect Mind. Hello, Celene, how are you?
I'm great, Joanna. Thanks so much for having me back. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm so happy you agreed to see me so soon again. And so because not everybody watches every video, so very briefly, could you tell us, who you are, what you're doing, in a few sentences so the viewers have some idea about you as a person?
Sure. As you said, my name is Celene Lillie, and I am a professor of New Testament and early Christianity. I'm an adjunct professor, so I work at a number of different universities, including the University of Colorado and the Seattle School for Theology and Psychology. And I'm also the dean of the Westar Academy's new online academic program, which will be launching in in this winter, 2023. And for those of you who don't know the Westar Institute, westarinstitute.org is their website, and they are the home of the Jesus Seminar, which is how a lot of people know about them, kind of doing historical Jesus work.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's very impressive, Dean. The ancient academic in me thinks, oh, how impressive, a professor and a dean. Wonderful. Is it a new thing? Because last time you didn't mention this part, yeah?
So this is new. I've been kind of working on this for a little while, and now that we're kind of moving into the launch stage, we actually have a learning system in place so that people will be able to interface with this. And so I'm trying to do a little more, just letting people know that this is happening, and that it'll be accessible online scholarship for all kinds of stuff. So keep your eyes peeled for it.
Congratulations. So is it the same link that you gave me last time, or should I put a new link at the bottom of this interview?
Westarinstitute.org is perfect.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm sure lots of people will be interested, because not everybody watches, this video on the day of recording, right? So by the time some people watch, I'm sure many people will be interested. So because Celene is a fantastic scholar, and I'm so excited to have her again. So Celene, today I would like to speak about this wonderful poem, Find the Perfect Mind. And I know that you were one of the translators of this, and I was just looking on Amazon for this, and for some idiotic reason, it's not available anymore, so it was published in 2009, So, and that's a beautiful poem, very powerful poem. That is written in the first person and in feminine voice, right? Or at least primarily in the feminine voice, because I know that there is some discussion there. So where should we start? So perhaps I just should start that for those who don't know, that it was discovered in Nag Hammadi in 1945 and with other Gnostic works. So and as far as I know, this is the only place where it was found, right? So it's that's a very rare discovery. And just to give credit to my friend Miguel Cone from Ion by Gnostic Radio, he recently gave a beautiful lecture on Find the Perfect Mind. And just to give him this credit, he inspired me actually to invite Celene again, because I was thinking actually she's a perfect person. Out of all of the people who wrote about it, I would like to hear from her. So would you like to take it from this? So we know it's Nag Hammadi, it's 1945. This is the only place and time that it was found. So it's what a rare jewel. So take it from there.
Yeah, it is a rare jewel. And Joanna, I think just because of who your audience is and who you are, you'll probably find this interesting. So I was actually introduced to this poem when I was 19 years old by a mentor of mine when I was a college dropout at this point. I was working at a women's book and gift store in Charlotte, North Carolina, so in the south of the United States. This is in the 90s. It's still very conservative at this point. And my dear boss, who I'm still friends with, Hope Swan, introduced me to this poem. And lo and behold, I had no clue that 10, 15 years afterwards, I would be working on this as a PhD student and co-authoring this book on this poem, which is one of kind of the many things that made me think, oh, studying early Christianity might actually be interesting. There might be something here. But so just to say a little bit about this poem, and I do also want to give a lot of credit to my co-authors on this book. We started this project as when I was taking Coptic language classes, and we were looking for something to translate, and started to find all of this really interesting stuff that people hadn't been talking about. So Jada Calloway, Maya Katrositz, Justin Lasser, and Hal Tausig, and everything that I'm going to say is really based on our work together and has grown out of that. So, you know, we don't know. It was found at Nag Hammadi. There's actually a little tiny piece of it in the middle of On the Origin of the World, which I talked about last time, where Eve says a little tiny piece that seems like it's this poem. But other than that, this is the only copy of it we have. It was something that we did not know existed beforehand. And we don't really know. The dating on it is really, really tough. Scholars think, our guess, I think we said in the book, like anywhere from the first or second century BCE to the 2nd century or 3rd century CE. There's just really no way to know, because it's actually in a standard form for the ancient world, what's called an erotology. And this is when gods or goddesses speak in the first person. And, you know, we have these for like Isis and Osiris. There's a wonderful one of Isis that's from the 1st century CE, where she talks about, you know, I'm the one who brought law and order. I'm the one who made marriage. I'm the one who brought agriculture to the world. And usually it's these, you know, these wonderful kind of self-praises of these gods and goddesses. But thunder is really, really different in a lot of ways. And one of the many ways, and, you know, there's so much to talk about with this poem, but is that she inhabits, and I'm using a she, as you said, it's kind of a primary she, speaking of this I, but it seems like there's some fluidity there, and that she kind of inhabits these other inhabits gender in some really fluid ways, which is also interesting. So often in the ancient world, you get the male as the primary. And so, you know, just like previous to probably the last couple decades, you know, people would say mankind instead of humankind, or, you know, mankind was the universal human. And so it always came from the male gender to be universalized. And here we get this female that's really kind of the universal. And then she's the one who sometimes inhabits these more masculine spaces. So it's really interesting to kind of see and ask questions about what in the world is going on here. But the other thing about this is that she also embodies not only these lofty places, but also places that are marginal. And it seems to be not just opposites that she embodies, but, you know, you'll get kind of these pairs, and then they're undercut by a third. So there's this way in which the whole poem seems to be deconstructing dualisms and trying to open a space for people who are reading, and there's more to say about this too, but reading, hearing, speaking it, that they can then inhabit this space that's beyond dualisms and move to be in, I might use like Jung's transcendent function here, where it's really the union of the opposites for a new third to come about. And then that place is inhabited. So it is just, I mean, it's a juicy poem.
It is a juicy poem, and I'm glad that you mentioned Carl Jung, because when you were talking about it, that she goes beyond polarities. She goes beyond polarities, and maybe we'll look at examples soon also of this, is that I was thinking about when Jung talks about, pleroma, the Gnostic pleroma, which is this kind of cosmic soup before everything actually happens. And then out of a pleroma, everything comes, right? Like, which is dualistic, she and he, for example, like masculine and feminine, good and bad, and so on. So in his Sermons to the Dead, right? So which is a very Gnostic work. So this is, I think that this poem actually wants to take us back to this like original oneness. And I think all great spiritual traditions, and this is coming definitely from some original great spiritual traditions, this is my feeling about it, is, take us back to this original oneness, or at least attempts to point us into the original oneness of everything, right? Because especially look, even nowadays, we're all caught up in different polarities, like even if you look at the world, right? Like it's either this or that. And politically, economically, everything, right? And we are such divided species. But works like this at least point us in the directions of something that is beyond that. So although it's a feminine voice, and of course I love it, because I want to also discuss some issues like feminine power and how it is different perhaps from masculine power, or how could be, because we really still don't know, in my opinion, how to be powerful in this other way. Right? Because I'm teaching some courses now and people ask me these questions. And so I'm just kind of exploring them. But also I agree with you that thunder is meant to be performed, right? Like it is just, you are like on a stage and you say it, right? So,
and well, I was just going to say, and this beautiful piece of as like, if you imagine it being performed, or you imagine performing it, the person who is speaking, whether it's you or someone else, ends up starting to take on that I. If I am claiming thunder, if I am speaking thunder, there is a piece of speaking it because it's in the first person that starts to claim me too in a performance.
That's right. So when you can identify with it, so you claim this power, you claim this kind of access to the source, which is beyond the polarities. And I think I definitely will look at some examples of this. But, when I was listening to Miguel's lecture, he was also saying that, it is, I just want to return to the possible origins. And I know, especially with Gnostic works, even with canonical Bible, nobody knows exactly what and how, right? We're just briefly discussing it before the show. But Gnostic sources, because they were suppressed, or because they're so alternative, it's very difficult to date them, and because they're only fragments. But some of them, apparently the dating goes between like 300 BC to 200 BCE, right? So some people say it's early Christian, and lots of scholarship says it's an early Christian source, but some people say it may be earlier, maybe earlier Egyptian source. Is it true?
I think it could absolutely be an earlier. I think it could be absolutely be an earlier source. The one thing that I would say, as far as it being a Christian source, is that which I would, and again, this definitely comes from the colleagues that I work with on this as well, that if you read through the poem and you get to the end of it, there it starts. Oh goodness, I should like, it's just the last couple stanzas of the poem.
Can you read them out? Do you have them available?
Sure. Let me so there's a lot of lacunas here. So it just, and then light, and here's to you the great power, and will not move the name. He who created me, but I will speak his name. Look then at his pronouncements and all the writings that have been completed. Listen then, audience, and also you angels, along with those who have been sent, and spirits who have risen from among the dead, for I am he who exists alone, and no one judges me. Since many sweet ideas exist in all kinds of sin, uncontrollable and condemning passions and passing pleasures that people have, until they become sober and go up to their resting place, and they will find me in that place. They will live and they will never die again. So
Yeah.
this ending, we think, is tagged on to really domesticate the rest of the poem in a lot of ways. You get all of these he's, there's this piece about written language. It seems to be stylistically very, very different than what comes before.
Okay, so I wanted to say this. So the last part that you just read out reminds me in parts of Gospel of Thomas, right? Which is so this similar. And then early on, it also says, those who have ears, let them hear. And there's a similar kind of phrasing in the thunder. But also this makes me very suspicious. Maybe I'm just going to goddess radical here, but because I love Gospel of Thomas and then I love, Jesus as well. But maybe it is a later edition trying to Christianize it. I think this is, especially if it's linguistically slightly difficult or stylistically slightly different, I'm sorry, not difficult, different, then it may be just now, she went from she to he. It could be just because it's a gender blending, and which is beautiful as well, because if we are going back to unity, there is no she, there is no he, right? So let's not get uptight about these things. But if it's also stylistically different, it could be a later addition to Christianize it, so make it to sound a little bit like the Gospel of Thomas, which is, for people who are not familiar with this, it's another Gnostic gospel, right? So it sounds a little bit like Gospel of Thomas to me, right? So this part. So
Joanna, I was just going to say the other thing that I would say about the rest of it, and this comes from some really, really fine work from Jada Calloway, who has done, who just is a fantastic Coptologist and really wonderfully versed in Coptic poetry. With her analysis, one of the questions we really started asking was this originally written in Coptic? If you look at, as with most of the Nag Hammadi texts, the first thing that scholars generally say is, they were all written in Greek and then they were translated into Coptic. And what she really showed with her analysis is that the patterns of the poem, the rhyming that happens with the Coptic seems to be really indigenous to the piece. And so we actually started asking the question, is the original purview for this Egypt? So that is definitely a possibility.
And just for our viewers, can you briefly explain, Coptic? What is Coptic as a language?
So Coptic as a language is, so it's ancient Egyptian that's written in Greek letters, transliterated in Greek letters so that people knew how to pronounce it. And the best way that I kind of can describe this to folks is if you think about like Chinese characters, for example, but they get written for folks who speak Romance languages. They'll get written in Roman letters so that we know how to pronounce the words, but it's actually rendered in a character instead. And so that's really what's going on with Coptic. It's written in these Greek letters so that people know how to pronounce it. And then there are Greek loan words. But if you think about, any language, you get loan words from other languages all the time. There are so many English loan words in so many languages because for better or for worse, English has become kind of the lingua franca of the globe. And in this region at that time, it was Greek. And so it's a kind of a no-brainer that there would be some Greek loan words in the midst of this. So rather than saying like, oh yes, this definitely was translated from Greek first, there really seems to be in the poetry, in the style, a big question that needs to be asked is if it was originally written in Egyptian, or spoken in Egyptian first and then written down.
I love it. So if it was written first in Egyptian, it would probably qualify more for even more pre-Christian if you skip the last part, right? Because it means it's probably very ancient. So in this lecture, I also heard, some similarities were connected to Isis, because, and you also brought it up, but it sounds like, there's a form, there's an ancient tradition when the goddess or a god speaks straight to humanity or straight to you, right? So, for example, Miguel was quoting something about from Isis, I defeat fate. Fate obeys me, which is like, I am like a super kick, like goddess, because, in ancient times, fate was the thing. There was no escaping fate. There was no free will, right? Fate was, that's it. You have fate and you just live your life according to your fate. But she says, I defeat fate. Fate obeys me. So find the perfect mind is kind of, has the same tone, like you perform it and it is like, I'm a super goddess. I'm a kick-ass goddess. Right? Like even even faith has to obey me, right?
Exactly.
So, and another, so do you think it could, and maybe as a scholar, I don't want to make this kind of conjecture, but so could it be related somehow to, if not to the genre, maybe to some tradition of Isis, or you wouldn't like to go there, because there's no strict evidence?
It's definitely related to the genre. I mean, I would say beyond a shadow of a doubt, we also get things like this in, like Proverbs 8, where Proverbs is speaking, I wisdom live with prudence and I attain knowledge and discretion. So, this is a really common form in the ancient world. And I definitely agree with that. The one thing that I would say that's different that we find, so, for example, like this is an Isis erotology from the 1st century where she says, and I'll just give a couple of these examples of, I'm the one who discovered wheat for humankind. I am the one called goddess by women. I separated earth from the heavens. I showed the paths of the stars. I regulated the course of the sun and the moon. I devised the deeds of seafaring. I made what is right, strong. I brought together woman and man. I devised marriage contracts. So it's just and again, and law and order. I abolished the rules of the tyrant. I put an end to murders. So these are the things that kind of Isis is saying. And the one difference that I would say that I find really, really interesting about Thunder is, pieces like, she is just not always embodying this really lofty state. So for example, you who loathe me, why do you love me and loathe the ones who love me? You who deny me, confess me. You who confess me, deny me. You who speak truth about me, lie about me. You who lie about me, speak truth about me. You who know me, ignore me. You who ignore me, know me. I am both awareness and obliviousness. I am humiliation and pride. I am without shame. I am ashamed. So there's a little bit different flavor that we get here. But the thing that I love about it is that for us mere mortals on the earth, she's actually a heck of a lot more relatable than Isis.
That's right. And she's honest. And, that brings Gnostics and, who knows whether they are Christians or, or pre-Christians. Again, there's the same argument because, and Sophia, of course, because she, for me, it really, maybe it is Isis, but it's definitely Sophia for me, because Thunder as wisdom, but also Sophia, who was, lofty, and she fell, right? And then she went back, but she left her part with us, out of her compassion. So Sophia is exactly up and down, right? She's the goddess and she's the whore, right? And like as in Thunder. So for me, I think like immediately think Sophia, just that Miguel brought up Isis, and I thought I love it. But when I read this poem, it brings up to me the Gnostic goddess of Sophia, who is both up there and down here, and who knows our sorrows and tribulations and our passions and, despair, because she fell into this, right? And eventually, at least partially liberated herself out of this, right?
And the one thing too, just, going back to something that you said earlier about the pleroma, one thing that I think is so important for folks is to know that like that's a Greek transliteration, and it does actually have this, it has an English translation, and it's fullness. And so it's also this piece to me of like, if we think about the possibility of this being, whether it's Sophia or whether it's you or me or someone in our audience, what does it mean to kind of come back into the fullness? What does it mean to, and I just have to say, like, I love the piece around this where you're able to think about like, it's not wholeness. It's not like some kind of like, oh, we're just going to heal everything and make it all better. It's actually embracing all of these things and thinking about it as a fullness. And there's something really interesting about that as well.
Yeah, I think so. I like it as well because, Sophia for me also is the journey of our soul, right? So Sophia, it's not just out there, it basically symbolizes our journey. We go up, we go down, we are these mortal beings, divine beings in a mortal body, and we make mistakes all the time, and we have ecstatic experiences, and we doubt ourselves. And this is what this poem and Sophia, but especially this poem really reflects. So for me, it's a reflection of our soul. That's why I really love it. And I have one more question, and then I would like to move to something else. It is that Miguel mentioned Nicola Densley Lewis, who says apparently that she believes in the introduction to Gnosticism, that she believes that this poem was written by a woman. What's your opinion about it?
I mean, I think it's absolutely possible. I wish we could know. I wish we could know for sure. But, the thing is that why do we assume that everything's written by men?
That's
I mean,
right.
I also think that that's an issue. We know that while most people in the ancient world, just regardless, are illiterate, they're not the ones writing things down. They're not the everyday people aren't really the ones writing things down. It's elite. And while it's mostly men, we absolutely know of women who are writing and educated. And I guess also, who knows, if you had a bunch of folks, we're talking about an oral culture, who knows who could have been sitting around and exploring this in a performative way that somebody wrote down later. I mean, in my dream world, I actually think about this as this poem emerging from a community of people sitting in circles and claiming these positions. And I've had the opportunity to actually perform this with folks occasionally, where you do have 10 or 15 people reading it and popping up different lines. And I absolutely think that it also could have emerged from a community of women, possibly a community, regardless, that cared about women. And if there were men there were certainly also women helping to compose this.
That's right. And so there are two things that come to my mind. First of all, there were priestesses, right? And this really speaks I am like Enjuenada for Inanna. I am speaking for Inanna, right? So this is I am speaking for the goddess. So I see totally, like a high priestess of some order, saying this. Another thing is when I'm looking at another oral traditions, and this is from esoteric tantra, from Kashmir Shaivism, or even from Tibetan Buddhism, the traditions of yoginis and dakinis, so it was an oral tradition that was passed on from woman to woman. And, and they were actually not even allowed to write it down, any of this, right? And then later men took it over and wrote it down, right? So it's under their names now. But actually, the men who had integrity, they said it comes from a long oral tradition, right? So there is this tradition in every culture, in every spirituality, in every religion. There was an oral tradition that later was written down, right? So
Oh, and just to say too, like that energy of speaking,
Mm.
there's something that is literally then passed from person to person in a personal way that then can also, I mean, it's the reason why Plato or Socrates, I guess it's Plato writing him down, but was like, no, we don't want things written down. We need oral tradition because it's how we make sure to keep the tradition pure.
That's right. Absolutely. And great beings, Jesus, Buddha, they didn't write anything, right? And also going back to like more literary tradition, Homer, it was all spoken word, right? Who knows who wrote it down, right? Like it was all in an oral form. And now I have a kind of modern question for you, because I would like to discuss it. And I have people asking me I teach some postgraduate students, and they ask me, and then I also here on this channel, I have people asking me, okay, they said, okay, so you wrote the book, The Other Goddess, and you discuss wisdom, and you discuss Eros and sexuality, which is good because, right? But what about power? What about women in power? And I still feel disempowered. Right. And so, okay, so I have wisdom and I can accept my sexuality, but what does it mean for a woman to be empowered? And last night, actually, I had a workshop with my postgrads, and we're discussing this. And I just said, I think that women's power should be different than men's power. It shouldn't be about this masculine way, but it's of bossing people around or conquering, but it's also not about self-sacrifice and being nice and virginal because it's boring and thank you. It's been done and I'm not going there. Okay. You want to take it, live it, but I'm not going there anymore. So, and I had this realization early on. So I think that we have to discover this as source of power, which is somehow forgotten. And I think this poem, Find the Perfect Mind, actually brings up this power, like kind of energetically. Like you think, I'm speaking again about my own tradition, which is, from esoteric tantra again, from Spanda Karikas, which is 10th century, which talks about Spanda, which is kind of upward movement of energy or grace, except that it's maybe more vital than the grace. And you feel this surge of power, but it's not this kind of power, I'm going to conquer some people, and murder some, I don't know, do some horrible things. It is just like, I feel this divine power rising in me, and and I want to encourage people after this, and at the end, we'll do this maybe little meditation when we read it, feel this power, what does this poem bring in you? What is your gift? So I said, discover your power. What is your unique power? Right. And because we actually know very little how to be a woman and how to be a powerful person without turning into a man, because I find it actually very unattractive, this kind of power suit and, business. I find it's kind of yak, it's just as bad as, the virgin. So what is your comment on this, about, okay, so I discuss, Eros, you discuss wisdom, you discuss, all of these biblical things, What about women and power, and what does it mean for you?
So I love this question. And I'll just say for me personally, like this is an ongoing part of my own journey, is figuring out, so what does it mean to be in this world, which is so very based on patriarchal power dynamics, and to say, I am not going to evacuate my power, but I'm going to do something. It's going to be something different. It's going to come from a different place. I always think back to, and again, this is early reading from my teenage years, of like someone like Starhawk, who talks about power with versus power over. And what does it mean to be, to have power together. And I actually have gotten very careful about this, even with my students, when I'm talking to them about empowerment, and this constant reminder for myself, like, I don't empower anybody. Like, people already have their own power and they get to tap into that and bring that to the world. And it isn't about, it's not about competition. It's not about violence, but it's about this intense, passionate creativity, that each one of us, I think, holds this spark of. And there's something to me, I think, about thunder, and it's the reason why I come back to it again and again and again. But also about being able to claim the multiple pieces of myself, the things that seem contradictory, but actually are creating a spark of something. And what does it mean to be able to hold? I'm not going to actually say that. I'm sorry. This is another thing that I'm learning to relanguage right now. There's a lot in psychology and spiritual circles about holding space for stuff. And this is another piece of language that I'm getting rid of. And maybe I'll say something about this too. And thunder helps me to blow this open as well. That one of the things that holding space has done for me psychologically is it makes me feel like I actually have to do something, that it is, it's my job. I have to do it on my own. I'm the only person responsible. And then all of these things get stuck and lodged in this tight container that I start to create around holding space. And what I think, supposed to do, and I think thunder again so helps to reframe this for me, but it's about allowing more space, being part of a space, being the conduit for something in a space, being able to feel something and co-create spaces with other people, with the world, with spirit, with all of these things. And I think that's this piece of thunder, is that the container gets blown open into that space, into that fullness, but it's not on its own. And it's this really interesting, the place that she inhabits, where she dwells, is just, it's non-dual, like it's just pointing, you're just pointing at something. And and I think, to me, that's then this question of power, of what does it mean? And it also means, like, not putting up with bullshit, not being ashamed when I screw up, not putting up with circumstances, expectations that are that diminish me, that or that are asking for all kinds of unpaid labor, all of these things. I think that and I look and think about how there are so many people in the world who are asked to do these things a heck of a lot more than I am. And I just think it's this piece where, people, it is this calling to accountability in some ways, to ourselves and to one another, to uplift everyone to be a part of this power, that it's not, the power actually grows the more we share it, instead of like having this, scarcity model. Oh, it's like a scarcity model of power that's existing out there. And I don't think, and thunder tells us something different about that.
I love it. So I have like 3 things. So first of all, I really love it. Thank you. And when you're saying it, I could feel, the energy rising in me, because again, it's the power of language. But also I think that the power you're speaking about is the power of going with the energy, this non-dual energy, rather than, I'm just going to go and conquer some countries, and so on. But, this energy, this higher energy, and it is a big unknown. You don't know when this energy is going to take you. And it takes greater courage than conquering countries, It is just where we are discovering new universes, internally and externally. When we do this, we go with the divine that is rising in us. And another thing is, I absolutely agree with you, because this is what I talk to my students about. Take responsibility. Being a woman, it's not about whinging, baby. It's not about blaming, because this just disempowers you more. And it's not about blaming yourself either, but because that's wrong too, because women do this too, right? But from now on, I'm not going to allow for this, let's use this, word that you don't like, space, for this to happen to me, because somehow I participated in it. And continue so by feeling somehow unworthy, or, like my labor doesn't count, or, I should be doing it for free, or, right? So take responsibility, because taking this responsibility is your greatest power, right? Now it's up to me. It's not how people judge me. It's not what they do to me. It's not what they expect of me. I am making this decision. And if I want to be of service, I'm of service. If I want to withdraw, I withdraw. If I don't like something, I say no. If I'm enthusiastic about something, I say yes. Yes, but I'm an agent of myself. And I think this is what Founder is really teaching us, be an agent, right? Of this higher power, not, this kind of egoic power, right? That we discussed before, which is being competitive, comparing ourselves, bitching about, other people, blaming other people. Take responsibility, because this is the only way you can reclaim your power, this other sense of power. So if you don't mind, I would like us maybe to have just finish it with just a little kind of meditation here. I hope I can find it now. Sorry, just because these things disappear so quickly. I couldn't find, I must say, your book. So I just found something on Google. I hope it doesn't insult you. Okay, so I just want to read it, because I want us to find our own Founder. If you don't mind, let's find our own Founder, and maybe let's read it, and maybe I'll read a part and maybe you read part. How do we want to do this? And let's finish with this, find the perfect mind, let's find this power. I was sent forth from the power, and I have come to those who reflect upon me, and I have been found among those who seek after me. Look upon me, you who reflect upon me, and you hear me. You who are waiting for me, take me to yourselves, and do not banish me from your sight, and do not make your voice hate me, nor your hearing. Do not be ignorant of me anywhere or anytime. Be on your guard. Do not be ignorant of me, for I am the first, and I am the last. I am the honored one, and I am the scorned one. I am the whore, and I am the holy one. I am the wife, and I am the virgin.
I am the mother and the daughter. I am the members of my mother. I am the barren one, and many are her sons. I am she whose wedding is great, and I have not taken a husband. I am the midwife, and she who does not bear. I am the solace of my labor pains. I am the bride and the bridegroom, and it is my husband who begot me. I am the mother of my father and the sister of my husband, and he is my offspring. I am the slave of him who prepared me. I am the ruler of my offspring, but he is the one who begot me before the time on a birthday. And he is my offspring in due time, and my power is from him. I am the staff of his power in his youth, and he is the rod of my old age, and whatever he wills happens to me.
I am the silence that is incomprehensible, and the idea whose remembrance is frequent, and the voice whose sound is manifold, and the word whose appearance is multiple, and the utterance of my name. Why, you who hate me, do you love me? And hate those who love me? You who deny me, confess me, and you who confess me, deny me. You who tell the truth about me, lie about me. And you who have lied about me, tell the truth about me. You who know me, be ignorant of me. And those who have not known me, let them know me.
For I am knowledge and ignorance. I am shame and boldness. I am shameless. I am ashamed. I am strength and I am fear. I am war and peace. Give heed to me. I am the one who is disgraced and the great one. Give heed to my poverty and my wealth. Do not be arrogant of me when I am cast out upon the earth, and you will find me in those that are to come. And do not look upon me on the dung heap, nor go and leave me cast out. And you will find me in the kingdoms. And do not look upon me when I am cast out among those who are disgraced and in the least places, nor laugh at me. And do not cast me out among those who are slain in violence.
But I am compassionate and I am cruel. Be on your guard. And I think we are going to finish it here. And this is what I want us to think about it. Let's find, our own founder, our own power, and in our own special way, different, that is perhaps unknown to us. And perhaps it's even more ancient than any other power that we know. And I think this power can actually change us and change the world, because we certainly, if we need something nowadays, it's a different concept of power. And I think it is really, I would like to encourage everybody who's going to watch this video and chose to listen to Celene, to read Thunder and find that thunder, that inner thunder that's raising within them. And with this, I would like to finish this recording. Celene, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here with us again.
Thank you so much.